Hello, and welcome to the Sci-Fi Christian Book Reviews, brought to you by the Sci-Fi-Christian.com. I'm Ben DiBono, back with you after a little bit of a hiatus. I think it's been a couple weeks since I've put up a review. I was out of town, backpacking in Washington State, but I've returned and am here to talk to you today about Robert Silverberg's Hugo Award-winning novel, Nightwings. Actually, it might have just been, I'll have to double check on that. He did win a Hugo for it, but the book is actually 3 interconnected novellas that were originally published separately, and it might have just been one of the novellas that he won for. But anyway, either way, Hugo Award-winning book, considered a sci-fi classic. First time I've read it, first time I've read anything by Robert Silverberg, and I liked it. But this one's going to be a little interesting to kind of work through exactly what I thought of it, I should say. I liked it, so it's a solid overall impression. This is going to be a positive review with maybe some qualifications on it. And the reason I feel maybe a little bit conflicted is I actually almost stopped reading this book. I think I started it on my plane ride out to Washington. No, I must have started it. It was started on my trip to Washington, and I got a chapter or so in, maybe a couple chapters, and I put it down and I thought, I'm not going to read this. I don't care for it at all. And my judgment was, well, it was definitely hasty and maybe a little bit unfair for some reasons I'll get into. One of the things I like to do when I quit a book is kind of look up other reviews and see, start reading some user reviews or whatnot to see kind of, okay, am I missing something here? Are people feeling the same complaints I was feeling? And the reviews on this on Amazon are almost completely positive. So that, coupled with the fact that it's Hugo Award winner, coupled with the fact that it's a science fiction classic, I said, okay, I gotta finish it. It's not that long, it might not be my cup of tea or whatever, but I'm gonna go ahead and finish it, and I'm glad I did, because it is a good book. It's a really interesting novel. It's set in kind of a post-apocalyptic universe way into the future, where humanity has had its golden age, which is referred to as the second cycle in the future, which takes place beyond our present. And then that world collapses, we find out, and they're now in what they call the third cycle, where humanity has basically collapsed from its golden age and is awaiting what seems to be the inevitable alien invasion that they believe will be coming in the not too distant future. So that's kind of the setup. Interesting novel. And that intrigued me. That's an intriguing setup to me, and so it seemed like it'd be right up my alley. What almost made me stop reading it, though, at the beginning, and this is a complaint that I had throughout, is that some of the dialogue was just unbearable. Especially at the beginning. It got better, or maybe it didn't and I just kind of got used to it, or maybe it wasn't such bad dialogue and it actually fit the world and I just wasn't into the book yet. I suspect the truth is kind of somewhere in between that one and saying the dialogue's unbearable. But it was really bugging me at first. And this is where I think I was maybe being a little unfair, because part of why it was bugging me is that at the beginning of the novel you have a group of people who are traveling to futuristic Rome, okay? So that's like in the first couple chapters. And they're walking there, so they're on this long hike, and when they talk to each other, it's this kind of flowery, formal dialogue, which in fairness fits most of the book, but having just gotten done or right at the end of a 4-day grueling backpacking trip where I felt absolutely dead, and thinking about how us guys on the trip were talking to each other, yeah, there's nothing flowery about our language, there's nothing formal about our language. And that's where, okay, so it was one of those things where it's like, reading this first chapter of the book, and it feels very similar to what I was doing at the time, and there was a huge gap between reality and what was happening in the book, and that's not fair to criticize the book for that. I think it's understandable, looking back, why that bugged me at the moment, but it's not fair to criticize the book, because the book is a book, right? Books should be allowed to draw you into their world and paint their picture through unrealistic dialogue and other tools like that. I really believe that. You know, I think that we demand every book needs to be gritty and it needs to have perfectly realistic dialogue. We get this everything just has, there can't be any plot holes and everything has to logically flow. And no. Literature and story's goal is not to show you a documentary of what this story would be like in our world. It's to talk about a theme or show you interesting characters or make you think or, you know, entertain you or what have you. And sometimes realism is a part of that, but not always. Okay, so I think that we, you know, make a mistake when we demand this perfect realism from books, which is what I was doing, which was inappropriate and unfair to the book. But I got past that. But at the same time, I have to say, even though I did get over that, and I really did, because once I got past that and said, okay, I'm going to read this book, I really started to enjoy it, and really enjoyed the book all the way up until the end. But there are moments, even with that, where the dialogue falls flat, especially with one of the characters, a girl named, I'm going to forget her name or butcher it, it's Avlulia or something like that. We'll call her Avi, because I just butchered her name. You'll know what I'm talking about if you've read the book, but that's not actually her name. She's a flyer girl or whatever. Her dialogue's just really poorly written. I think with most of the dialogue, what he's trying to do is write it in such a way where it lends itself to this tragic, fallen, in many ways hopeless world where humanity's best days seem to be behind it, and really kind of, in an archaic sense, capture this mixture of futuristic and formalized archaism. And the dialogue does a good job of that in a lot of places. If I could offer a comparison, it might be similar to the way Roger Zelazny uses dialogue in Lord of Light. But there are moments where, you know, there's kind of a thin line between doing that well, writing that kind of dialogue well, and just having it be wooden and cheesy and falling flat. And most of the book we're on the right side of that line, but then there's moments where we cross over onto the other side. And that's really a big problem in this book, because even though that's not a ton of time where that happens, there's enough moments where it's distracting, and so much of the success of this novel is built on the atmosphere that he develops, which he does a really good job of, and the mood that he sets, and making you visualize what this world is. So it's very much a world where you need to feel and buy into the picture that he's painting for you. And he does a great job of helping his readers do that, except when we have these horrible dialogue moments, and then it's boom, you're out. And it instantly just crashes the mood. And then he does a good job of getting you back into it, but it is a significant distraction in the book. This is a really smart book, though, in terms of its themes. It really makes you think about things, the relationship between victims and conquerors, the relationship between sin, punishment, redemption. It's really, really smart about the way it develops those themes. I'm going to be vague because I don't want to give away the plot. Towards the end, the last couple chapters, it jettisons this subtle, thoughtful, intelligent approach and becomes really blatant with its message, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's not like we're going Ayn Rand and here's what you're going to believe or else. but again, it doesn't quite fit, and because of that, it draws you out of the novel. But that's really a small thing at the end. For most of this novel, it's really, really smart with developing its themes. And the atmosphere and the themes just so perfect together. Silverberg makes you believe in this world. He makes you buy into it. And most importantly, he makes you see yourself and our world in it. Okay? It's a great example of what science fiction is capable of doing in terms of helping us capture the sense of wonder and excitement of seeing a possible future. And also then using that future to reflect back on ourselves. Great job of that. Again, a little heavy-handed at the end, but for the most part, really, really well done. So Nightwings, Robert Silverberg. If you're like me and you were unfair to it in the beginning, keep reading. It gets better. It's really a good novel. Deserves its title as classic, but maybe a flawed classic. I'm going to give it 4 stars out of 5. I think, other people might bump that up to 4.5 or 5, depending on how much those issues bug you. To me, some of the dialogue stuff did take me out enough from the novel to knock it down to more of the 4 range, and that combined with the heavy-handed ending is enough to maybe take the novel down just that much, but very good, well worth your time. If you're a science fiction fan and you haven't read this, you should. Like I said, it earns its title as classic, and I think you'll really enjoy it and it will make you think exactly what a science fiction novel should do. So that's all for now. I'm Ben DeBono, and this is the Sci-Fi Christian Book Reviews. Goodbye.